As you know, Democrat Dave Upthegrove leads Republican Sue Keel Peterson by a slim 51 votes. And when a statewide race is divided by less than 1,000 votes, a mandatory hand recount is required by law. I am here at the Ballot Processing Center in Tumwater, Washington. That is what's happening right over there. This is the closest statewide election ever in Washington state. It is even closer than the historic governor's election of 2004, where the race ended up being decided by a mere 133 votes after multiple recounts.
Tonight, in a remarkable twist, after counting ballots for a third time, Democrat Christine Gregoire has captured the lead.
What happened in 2004 was somewhat of an anomaly because there were ballots that were found that weren't in their original count, and that's really what affected that race.
Let's stop right here. Why is the 2004 election important? Well, the governor's race was the closest governor's race in U.S. history, and the multiple recounts made national news. After the first count, Republican Dino Rossi was declared the winner by 261 votes out of 2.8 million cast. This triggered a mandatory machine recount. And Rossi won the machine recount as well, but this time by only 42 votes. He was certified the winner, but now a hand recount was on the way. During these recounts, some mishandled ballots were found.
In King County, we made an error in the processing of some absentee ballots. It was a significant error.
Whether to count these votes was challenged, and ultimately, the Supreme Court of Washington determined that these mishandled ballots could be counted.
This is what yesterday's state Supreme Court case was all about, including ballots where the county made an error,
resulting in a win for Democrat Christine Gregoire by 133 votes. Because of the mistakes made in the 2004 election, a series of reforms have been enacted to ensure the security and accuracy of our elections.
There were hundreds of law changes and procedural changes as a result of the 2004 gubernatorial race, and all for the better. We work hard to always improve our processes. We share best practices across the state and nation.
We're going to, in a moment, go into where the recount is happening. What are some of the things that we can expect to see when we're in there?
You'll see a lot of our seasonal temporary help. They come back for recounts in projects like this. And what they are doing is recounting all of the ballots by precinct. So what they have to do is sort the ballots and lay them out for the vote for each candidate, and then they count those votes for each given candidate, record them on a piece of paper. Then a second team does the exact same thing. So they also count for each candidate. Then they compare results and ensure they match. At that point in time, if they match, they compare them to what our precinct results from the certification say, and just ensure they match that as well.
What happens if the count is different from the hand recount and the machine recount, the machine count?
Where you see votes change is overvotes and undervotes. So an overvote is when a person marks both candidates, or the machine reads it as having a vote for each candidate. An undervote is when there was a vote for no candidate. So this is our voter intent manual. So it's basically our statewide standards on what is a vote. So this is a classic example. So these are stray marks. It's very clear that this is a vote for Roosevelt. However, they rested their pen, and our machines would pick this up as an overvote. So we remove this and ensure that the vote goes to Teddy Roosevelt. And during the hand count, it's very clear that it's a vote for the person whose oval was completely filled in. Here's another example of marks that aren't really clear. It's clear who these votes are for, but our machines may not pick that up. So if they're looking at a ballot like this, our machine might have counted it as an undervote, where it's clearly a vote for this candidate. It's a state law that we are required to inspect ballots to look for these sorts of things. So while that is typically what changes a vote from one candidate to the other, we don't really expect to see much of that.
Really saying there's a lot of eyes on these ballots.
There are a lot of eyes on these ballots, and that's why I love hand recounts, because they really validate that our equipment is counting correctly. I've been in this business for 28 years, and you just don't see recounts change the result.
Ultimately, the recount did not change the result. After the hand recount, the final vote total changed by 2 votes out of the almost 2 million cast. Dave Upthegrove maintained a slim margin of now 49 votes over Sue Keel-Peterson and will now face off against Jamie Herrera Butler in the general election. Through this process, Washingtonians saw firsthand how accurate our elections really are.